So the next topic is about from the Prophet peace upon him's life in Makkah. It is migration to Abyssinia. Since we know that when the Prophet peace upon him started preaching Islam, uh, Muslims and the Prophet peace upon him himself was also persecuted, and the time came then when these persecutions became unbearable. It became unbearable, and Muslims they were unable to bear it furthermore. So Holy Prophet peace be upon him, with the permission of Allah Almighty, he received a revelation. Okay, he received a revelation in which he has been commanded to allow his companions to migrate. Okay, you have to quote the Quranic verse. It is Surah number 39, verse number 10. Okay, Muslims in Makkah mainly were those who were without travel protection and they were slaves, they were persecuted. An ayat was revealed about the earth being spacious for believers. Okay, good is for those who do good, and Allah's earth is vast. It is spacious enough for them to immigrate therein. It is spacious enough for them to immigrate therein. Surah number 39, verse number 10. Wa ardullahi wasi'ah. That Allah's earth is vast. It is spacious for the believers. So, due to this verse, after when this verse was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he allowed his people to migrate. Since he was aware that the ruler of Abyssinia, okay, Abyssinia is Habasha, Ethiopia, okay, and it is the part of Africa. So he came to know about the kind and just behavior of the ruler. So he allowed his people and allowed his companions to migrate to Abyssinia. The first group migrated in the fifth year of prophethood. In the fifth year of prophethood, a group of 12 men and 4 women. Okay, some sources mention 11 men and 4 women. Both are acceptable. So you can mention either 12 men or 4 women, or you can mention 11 men or 4 women. Both are acceptable. It was the fifth year of prophethood. Okay, it may be 614 or 615 AD. Okay, what you have to mention that it was fifth year of prophethood. Okay, in which a group of Muslims, 11 men and 4 women, or 12 men or 4 women, they migrated to Abyssinia, and they migrated through a sea route from the port of Jeddah. Okay, what you have to mention, from the sea route from the port of Jeddah, they migrated. Makkans pursued them, they followed them, they wanted to bring them back, but by the time when they reached the coast, Muslims they had already boarded a ship. Fine. Whereupon the Quraysh chased them, but these people they managed to board a boat before the Quraysh got to them. Okay, so this is how Muslims they successfully migrated. When they reached there, they were allowed to stay there. Some books mention this thing that when the first group migrated, you have to mention that in the first group, Uthman and his wife Ruqayya, they were the first people who migrated in the first group. And Prophet peace upon him remarked about their migration. You should also quote it in your answer. That Prophet peace upon him remarked that this is the first couple migrated in the way of Allah after Ibrahim and his wife. This is the first couple migrated in the way of Allah after Ibrahim and his wife. Okay, or some sources mention that Ruqayya was the Prophet's daughter and Usman bin Affan, they migrated, and their voluntary exile marked the first instance of a family migration for religious reason since the time of Ibrahim and Lut. They also migrated for the cause of their religion, and this is the first couple after Ibrahim and Lut who migrated for the cause of their religion in the way of Allah, the family migration. Okay, so Quraysh they pursued them, but they were unable to bring them back. You should mention that when the first group migrated, 2 months later, the rumors were spread that the Makkans had accepted Islam. Okay, what was the fake news? The rumors were that the Makkans had accepted Islam. Okay, that is why some came back. when they falsely heard that the Quraysh had accepted Islam. Fine. You should give a slight details of it, that how and why these rumors were spread. What happened actually, that when the first group migrated, 2 months later, after the migration of the first group, Prophet peace be upon him received the new verses. Those were the verses of Surah Najm. Okay, these were the verses of Surah Najm, and Prophet peace upon him started reciting openly these recently revealed verses. Since these were very strong verses, and Quraysh, they were unable to create any disturbance when the Prophet peace upon him was reciting. Okay, and no one had heard such type of powerful words before that. So they started listening in the recitation of the Prophet peace upon him. Prophet peace upon him completed the recitation, and the last verse of this surah is the verse of sajda. Okay, the verse of sajda is that verse. Okay, after reciting such type of verses, the person has to perform sajda. So the last verse is the verse of sajda. Okay, and it says that to prostrate to your Lord and worship Him. Holy Prophet peace upon him performed sajda, and miraculously all the Quraysh were so overcome by the recitation that they prostrated along with him. They were so much overcome by the Prophet's recitation, it had that much impact on them, all of them, that they all prostrated, they all bowed along with the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. But later on, they repented what they had done. They felt ashamed that why they had prostrated to the Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him's Lord. Okay, and they took a handful of dust and rubbed on their face and their forehead, that for what they had done. Fine. Due to this, the rumors were spread that the Makkans had accepted Islam. So it was just a rumor. But when the first group, they returned back, they reached, they realized that it was just a rumor, and then the Prophet peace upon him asked them to migrate for another time. This time, another group, 83 men and 19 women. Some sources mention 82 or 83. Okay, 18 or 19 women. And they were led by the Prophet's cousin, Jafar bin Abi Talib. Again, this group migrated from the same route. You have to mention they migrated from the port of Jeddah, okay, from through the sea route, the Red Sea, and they reached there. Makkans again pursued them. They followed and chased them, but this time they were again unsuccessful. For that reason, this time they decided to send two of their envoys, two of their ambassadors to the king Negus, Najashi. They selected Amr bin Alas and Abdullah bin Rabi'a. You should mention these two names. Amr bin Alas and Abdullah bin Rabi'a were sent with gifts. Okay, they followed them. Okay, they got access to the court of Najashi. Okay, they succeeded in getting an audience with him, and they presented him with gifts from Arabia. And what they said to the king, that, O king, some foolish men from our country have taken refuge in your country. Some of our foolish men have taken refuge in your country. And what they had done, they had abandoned the religion of their forefathers. Okay, they had abandoned and they had left the religion of their forefather. And instead of following your religion, they had invented a new one. Okay, they tried to butter him, and they wanted to make some polish so that the king would be convinced with them by them. So this is how what he did. They said that instead of following your religion, they had invented a new one, and their family members have sent us to bring them back. So since Najashi was a just person, and he wanted to hear from the other side, from the Muslim side also, so he called the Muslims to his court. He summoned the Muslims, and Muslims, when they entered, they even did not bow to Negus Najashi, since it was a custom. But Muslims, since they were following the teachings of the Prophet peace upon him, they even did not bow. And Jafar radiallahu ta'ala anhu spoke on behalf of Muslims. Okay, you can quote some of his speech, that what he said to the king at that time. You can divide the speech of Hazrat Jafar into three major things. That first he talked about what they were, and then he talked about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and then he mentioned what are the prophet's main teachings. So initially he started with his speech with, "O king, we were ignorant people. We were worshipping idols. We were eating the dead animals, the carrion." Okay, was their previous condition. Just mention some of it. Then what he mentioned, then Allah has sent a person, a messenger from amongst us, whose nobility, whose truthfulness, honesty, and purity was well known by all of us. And then he invited us to believe in the oneness of God, to worship Allah, and to give up idol worshipping. Okay, and uh, not to commit adultery, theft, and such type of things that which were very much common. So we believed in him, and we followed his command, and he commanded us to be good to the relatives and the neighbors. So we followed him, and for this we have been deemed guilty. This is all what is our crime, and we have taken refuge in your country. So Najashi listened patiently to Jafar Azila Talanho, and then he asked Hazrat Jafar Azila Talanho that if he could recite something from the revelation that has been given to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. At that time, Jafar recited the opening verses of Surah Maryam. Okay, the opening verses of Surah Maryam was recited by Hazrat Jafar Azila Talanho. And when he listened these verses, this moved the Negus to tears. Okay, and his beard got wet. And what was his response? He said that truthfully, this and what Jesus brought are from the same divine light. Or by God, this and the gospel are the light, are the two rays of the same light. Okay, these words, such type of words could be mentioned. And he let the Muslims stay in Abyssinia as long as they wish. He allowed them. He returned the gifts of the Makkans, which were brought by Amr bin Alas and Abdullah bin Rabi'a. Fine. And he let the Muslims stay as long as they wish. Some sources also mention that next day, again these two people they went to Negus, and they tried to make another trick to convince Negus to send these people back to Makkah. What they did, they changed their tactics, and they returned to the king's court, and they made another attempt, saying they wanted to incite the king against the Muslims. And what they said that, "O king, they say such a thing, such words, such a blasphemy against Isa al-Islam and his mother that we are even unable to repeat such type of words in front of you. Okay, which is too shameful to be repeated before you." So the king, Negus, again called the Muslims to his court and questioned them about their belief regarding Isa al-Islam. Okay, Jafar again recited such verses of Surah Maryam, which talk about Isa, Hazrat Isa and his mother Maryam. Okay, he recited that we say about him that which our prophet has taught us, that Isa was a human being and Allah's prophet. He was a spirit and a word cast unto the blessed Virgin Maryam, Mary. So upon hearing these verses, Najashi, he took a straw from the ground and said that that the difference between us and you is not more than this. Okay, and some sources mention that he has drawn a line with the straw, and he said that the difference between us and you is not more than this line or not more than this straw. Okay, and he said that go and live in my territory in peace and security. Okay, those who ill treat you will be punished. Okay, I shall not give you any trouble. Even if I were offered a mountain of gold in exchange, even if they have brought a mountain of gold, he would have not sent these people to them. So this is how this migration to Abyssinia Muslims, they were allowed, and Quraysh envoys were given their gifts back, and they were sent away. And Muslims lived here in peace until they moved to Medina, and later on they migrated to Medina afterwards. So it also gave them an idea of the greater migration. Okay, so here again they are saying in the answer in the marking scheme that the excellent answers will give in-depth details of the story. So that is why I have shared the in-depth details of the story with you, names of the Muslims who migrated, and you have to elaborate on any points which are mentioned here in our answer. So I hope that this migration to Abyssinia is clear. And if you have any question related to it, you can share your questions and you can clear your problems.